causes poisonous effect. The word hara is the form of adoration, the energy of the Lord. Both Krishna and Rama are form of addressing directly the Lord, and they mean the highest pleasure eternal. Hara is the supreme pleasure potency of the Lord. This potency, when addressed as Hare, helps us in reaching the supreme Lord. The material energy, called as Maya, is also one of the multi-potencies of the Lord, as much as we are also marginal potency of the Lord. The living entities are described as superior energy than matter. When the superior energy is in contact with inferior energy, it becomes an incompatible situation. But when the supreme marginal potency is in contact with spiritual potency, Hara, it becomes the happy, normal condition of living entity. The three words, namely Hara, Krishna and Ram, are transcendental seeds of the Mahamantra, and the chanting is spiritual call for the Lord and his internal energy, Hara, for giving.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji and Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my most humble obeisances on your lotus feet. Welcome to the World Holy Name Festival organized by Iskcon Kirtan Ministry, day 6, second last day of this World Holy Name week. And today on the show, we have a great lineup for you. Today we are going to start with Her Grace Devi Shakti Mataji, who is going to describe Srila Prabhupada's struggles after he took sannyas as he prepared to go America. And then if you want to learn about Mradanga and Kartals, but didn't know where to start, then this is for you. Join His Grace Vaikunthamurti Prabhuji live from Mauritius, who is going to teach us how to play Mradanga and Kartal. Then after that, get ready for the high energy Kirtan live from Germany, Kirtan Mela by the stalwart Adi Rasa Prabhuji. So first, let me introduce you Her Grace Devi Shakti Mataji. From childhood, Her Grace Devi Shakti Mataji wanted to understand the teaching of God. As she states in an interview, I realized that the sweetest and most beautiful moments in my life were when we children gathered together at the school and sung ancient song in loving praise of God in the Hebrew language. She studied Chinese and Japanese University of Chicago for religious studies, found Bhagavad Gita, and then she read it. Amazed by this book, she decided it would be more valuable to find people who are living life as per the Bhagavad Gita. Those who are teaching it would be more valuable than wasting 4 years in university. She traveled and finally made devotees in Philadelphia. In 1974, Srila Prabhupada told Her Grace to distribute his book in all schools and colleges in India. She is distributing Srila Prabhupada books for more than 50 years. She is the steadiest book distributor in Iskcon. Her Grace Devi Shakti Mataji, she started distributing in 1970. She now distributes from a book distribution store next to our Vrindavan temple. This store has books in all the languages that we have books translated into. Throughout the years, she has met many devotees from her book distribution. Recently, I got a great fortune to have her association in the Srila Prabhupada Memorial Festival, and she told us mesmerizing stories of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhuji and Mataji, please welcome Her Grace Devi Shakti Mataji on World Holy Name Festival. Dandavat Pranam Mataji.
Hare Krishna. You've asked me to speak about Srila Prabhupada, and particularly because we've been studying for the past 2 years the first volume of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, a lifetime in preparation. Prabhupada has taken sannyas, and he's been working diligently to translate the Srimad Bhagavatam. He's going back and forth between Delhi and Vrindavan for printing in Delhi And in Vrindavan, he's setting up his rooms at Radha Damodar Temple and when he was one grudge.
Hare Krishna devotees. Just wait, maybe some internet problem there, but Mataji will join us soon. She's living in Vrindavan right now, so there will be some technical problem in the internet using the internet. So stay there. We are celebrating the World Holiness Festival weekday 6th, and tomorrow is going to be the big day because His Holiness Loknath Swami Maharaj will join us. His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj will join us, and then we'll go for a Kirtan retreat, and His Holiness Niranjan Swami Maharaj will join us for the Kirtan. This 6 days was fantastic. What do you think? Do you like that World Holiness Festival? Just go on the comment box. I want to see your comments. Do you like that event? Haribol, Saket Mishra says, Haribol. I love that smile on your face. I like your headphone as well. I seen you there. Hare Krishna. So we have, yes, Mataji, we back. Yes, Mataji.
Okay. So, Srila Prabhupada originally, he gave a summary of his life when he completed the translation of Chaitanya Charitamrita in 1974. And as we know, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the last chapter, it ends with the description of Sikshastakam, which are the principal teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in very condensed form. And then on that night of Rama Ekadashi, while Prabhupada was in Bombay, he did concluding words of his Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he described how in 1922 he had met Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, and although Prabhupada was a very staunch follower of Gandhi at the time, he argued with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati that who will listen to our message so long as we are subjugated by a foreign country. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati defeated him, and Prabhupada was feeling very grateful, now understanding that the real panacea for the world was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings, and he understood that these teachings were in the hands of a very qualified person, that was Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. So, though in 1922 he was newly married, and he soon after left Calcutta for Prayag to begin his own pharmacy and his pharmaceutical business there, he was always thinking of how he could assist Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati with the order that he had given him in that first meeting to preach in the English language in the Western countries, because that was Bhaktisiddhanta's desire, according to the desire of his father. So finally, when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was about to leave the world, just 2 weeks before he left and entered Samadhi, Prabhupada wrote to him again, apologizing that because he was a Grihastha, he could not serve him as his sannyasi godbrothers did, and asked again what service he could do. And the same order was given just before Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati left, that you preach in the English language in the Western countries. So Prabhupada, it took some time, but finally in 1944, Prabhupada began his preaching by starting the Back to Godhead magazine. Then from 1944 until 1950, whenever he could get paper, he would publish his Back to Godhead magazine. It was just a 4-page tabloid, like a newspaper. In 1950, Prabhupada left home. He took Vanaprastha and began preaching in Jhansi, in Mathura, in Kanpur, in Bombay, and finally made residence at the Bansi Gopal temple in Vrindavan, just down the road from the Radharaman temple. He continued with his Back to Godhead magazines, distributing them, getting subscriptions from scholars and people who appreciated his English all over India. But then he was advised to write books. One librarian and an Indian army officer recommended that newspapers, they get thrown out, but books, they're permanent. People keep them. So better you write books. So of all the books, Prabhupada had already done 1,100-page manuscript of Bhagavad Gita when he was at Grihastha, but somehow it was stolen. He decided that he would begin the Srimad Bhagavatam because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu called that the Amala Purana. And he also studied Srimad Bhagavatam, as did all of his associates. So Prabhupada began then. He was writing at the Bansi Gopal temple, and he would go into Delhi to print. There was one of his associates in Vrindavan had a son who owned the Radha Press in Gandhi Market in Delhi on the other side of the Jamuna. So Prabhupada would go there, and he started his printing work of the first volume of the first canto. And then with the help of Sri Krishna Pandit, he was given a room at the Radha Vallabh temple in an area of Old Delhi called Chippiwada, very congested area, but close to the paper market and where another printer was, OK Printer. So Prabhupada, he switched over to OK Printer because Prabhupada wanted his Bhagavatam done in 12-point times, and Radha Press could only do it in 10-point times. And also the families living at the Radha Vallabh temple, they were helping him. A young boy named Srikant Vedi, he would help Prabhupada carry the papers to and from the press, and his mother would often cook for Prabhupada. And Sri Krishna Pandit, he would help with the secretarial work to distribute the Back to Godhead magazines. So Prabhupada was pretty well established there in his little room on the roof of the Radha Vallabha temple. Sometimes the neighbors would complain that Prabhupada was typing all night because he had a big mission. And he would come back, and between 1959 and 1962, Prabhupada was offered the 2 rooms at Radha Damodar, and he spent between 500 and 1,000 rupees to fix up those 2 rooms. And then he was able to move in there in 1962 permanently, where he continued his typing. He had several associates in Vrindavan, and sometimes he would confide to them that Rupa Goswami was giving his blessings in dream, and also when he was chanting his japa. And he could hear the pastimes going on at night of the Leelas of Radha and Krishna. This was told by Dr. Gopal Ghosh, who runs our Vrindavan Research Institute just down the road here. He was a young boy at the time, but Prabhupada would speak to him sometimes. When Prabhupada had his 1964 Janmashtami program at Radha Damodar, he sent Gopal Ghosh out with a rickshaw and a loudspeaker announcing that everyone should come to the program, and many did. The governor came, UP governor, and after that, Prabhupada prepared for his trip to America. He had now completed his 3 volumes, and he was going to finally, he had his passport, visa, finally got his P form, and proceeded to Calcutta to go upon the Jaladuta. His books had been sent to Cochin, which is on the western coast of India. Prabhupada boarded in Calcutta, and because the other members on the boat were non-vegetarian, Prabhupada actually wasn't eating on the boat. And within a week or two, he became very weak, so that when they went around to Sri Lanka and then finally came to Cochin, which was corresponded to Janmashtami, they performed a Janmashtami ceremony just outside of the port of Cochin. Prabhupada held a program for all of the crew members and the captain and distributed prasadam. And then they boarded, they went into the port, got Prabhupada's volumes of books. He brought 200 sets of the 3 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam with him to America. And then when they started to cross the Arabian Sea, the weather became very bad and choppy. And because Prabhupada was just eating his chira, his flat rice, he was so weak by that time that he suffered from 2 heart attacks while on board at the Arabian Sea. When they reached finally Port Said, which is at the canal, Suez Canal, the captain, he took Prabhupada onto the land and bought him a stove so he could finally cook. And then at the Mediterranean Sea, Prabhupada began cooking for himself, khichdi, chachari, and he was feeling much stronger then. They crossed Gibraltar, they crossed the Atlantic Ocean, and the captain and his wife said that they had never seen the Atlantic Ocean so calm. Anyone who lives in America knows that September is hurricane season. But although it was September, there were no storms when they crossed the Atlantic Ocean. Finally, they were able to land in Boston for the first time. Prabhupada saw America. Just before reaching America, Prabhupada poured out his heart in a beautiful poem, expressing that though he was so far away from Vrindavan and his lords, he knew that Krishna must be sending him to America for a purpose. And whatever that purpose was, he knew that Krishna would guide him, although he couldn't understand how this was going to come about. Then again, after seeing Boston and seeing the degraded nature, Prabhupada called America Ubristan, a horrible place. He saw that most people were absorbed in the modes of passion and ignorance. While going from Boston to New York, Prabhupada wrote a second poem where he prayed to the Lord fervently. I don't know how I'm going to be able to touch the hearts of these people, but if you want me to dance, then make me dance, make me dance. Then Prabhupada finally reached New York, and when he got off of the boat, he didn't know whether to turn left or right, but fortunately, Gopal Agarwal, he had, there's a travel aid in America. So he had sent a representative to meet Prabhupada, brought him to the Port Authority bus terminal, and Prabhupada went by bus from New York to Pittsburgh. There in Pittsburgh, Gopal Agarwal met Prabhupada and brought him to Butler, Pennsylvania. And Prabhupada spent just a short time there. Sally Agarwal, blessed woman, she saw Prabhupada as her father-in-law. She set up Prabhupada's first preaching engagements at the YMCA, at colleges, and wherever she found people of interest. She invited people to come to her home every evening to ask spiritual questions of the Swami. And her children, because her eldest daughter was going to a little church school, she used to call Prabhupada Swami Jesus. And Prabhupada, he became very endeared to the family. He would cook for them, although in the refrigerator right next to his vegetables were meat. Prabhupada tolerated, and he would feed them prasadam, chapatis every day, and cook from his cooker. Gopal would come home for the lunch. But Prabhupada realized that if he was going to make an international society, it wasn't going to happen from Butler, Pennsylvania. So he said goodbye to the Agrawals. He went on bus to Philadelphia. He met a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, presented his books there. And then, just according to what he had always dreamed, he went on to the most important city in the world, he considered, that was New York City. And he had the address of Dr. Mishra, who was an impersonalist, so-called Swami. And he had a yoga society there. Dr. Mishra gladly accepted Prabhupada. Dr. Mishra was very unhealthy because of his lifestyle there in America, and Prabhupada brought him back to health by cooking for him every day. And Dr. Mishra gave Prabhupada a little office to stay in, adjacent to his yoga studio. And from there, Prabhupada began to develop a sense of independence from Dr. Mishra. He moved out of that office, finally got his own place, because Dr. Mishra would not allow him to lecture. He would only allow him to give kirtan, because as soon as Prabhupada began lecturing, he began speaking about the personal form of the Lord and explaining to Dr. Mishra's students that they were being misled into the impersonal concept of the Supreme. So Prabhupada, in his own little room, he was able to attract some young students that he had met from Dr. Mishra's congregation. And these young students, after Prabhupada, unfortunately, his tape recorder and his typewriter were stolen. So they offered Prabhupada, well, we had one of them, Harvey Cohen. He was going to move to San Francisco, and he had a place in the Lower East Side, so he invited Prabhupada to stay there at Bowery. So Prabhupada moved in there with one unfortunately, he was a drug-crazed young boy. Prabhupada was able to start his classes there. He attracted more young people, such as Mukunda and Janaki, and others who later became Prabhupada's disciples, although they might not have remained active in the movement after Prabhupada left the Bowery. So Prabhupada had some time there until that poor boy one night attempted to attack Prabhupada. And then with the help of Mukunda was able to find 26 Second Avenue, and Prabhupada transferred there. Now, at that time, Prabhupada began study classes in the Bhagavad Gita, and he had a program of Kirtan, and then Bhagavad Gita class, and then again Kirtan, and then he would take an apple, a piece of fruit, and cut it up, and whoever was there, they would get prasadam. So the kirtans there were very attractive for the young people, and he started amassing more and more of a congregation at 26 Second Avenue. This was in July that they moved in, and by Janmashtami of that year, 1966, which means Prabhupada had been struggling for 1 year all alone, by Janmashtami, several of the students were ready for initiation. Satsvarup Maharaj has written many books, memoirs of those times, how he felt that he wasn't ready for that first initiation. And he, in our classes on the Prabhupada Lilamrita, he corrected me. He wrote a letter to me and said that it's a misunderstanding to think that Prabhupada was only chanting at Tompkins Square. Actually, in order for them to chant at Tompkins Square Park, they had to get permission from the municipality. And it took them a month to get that permission. And it wasn't until October of 1966 that Prabhupada was able to start the chanting at Tompkins Square Park with the devotees. And at that time, they got their first real publicity because the New York Times, the East Village, they came and did articles and showed Prabhupada on the front covers. So from that time, Prabhupada went public with the devotees. But most of the kirtans and the classes were going on at 26 2nd Avenue. Then, unfortunately, in 1967, due to overwork, the strain, the fact that he had already suffered 2 heart attacks, Prabhupada once explained to one of his friends that he was never in good health after those heart attacks. So he had a 3rd heart attack, stroke, whatever it was, and he wasn't going to improve in the cold weather of America. So he decided in August of 1967 to return to India, to Vrindavan. And he decided to take one disciple with him, that was Kirtanananda. And a month later, Achyutananda would join them in Vrindavan. This made quite an impression because Prabhupada hadn't been in Vrindavan now for 2 years. And when Prabhupada returned with a foreign disciple, seeing all of his old friends, his godbrothers, the residents, the Goswami of Radha Damodar Temple, they were all very impressed that Prabhupada had made an impression there in America. And Prabhupada recuperated and soon returned to America. And from there, he began opening other temples. Mukunda, Janaki, Jamuna, Shamsundar, Malati, Gurudas, they had already started a center in San Francisco, and then Los Angeles. Then Prabhupada sent devotees to Montreal. Gradually, Prabhupada was gaining both in followers and in his dream to open temples all over the world. I'm going to go ahead to 1974 because in 1974, Prabhupada was working very hard to establish the Juhu temple, and he had to stay in Juhu for a long time because of the problems he was having with the municipality, and seeing that the devotees needed his presence there to get through these difficulties. He was spending a lot of time there in his old quarters. So 1974, Prabhupada sent us there to start book distribution, the library party, because the books had just arrived for the first time in Bombay. They were on the ship, and I expressed a desire to Prabhupada that I wanted to put his books in all the schools and libraries, as Satsvarup Maharaj was doing with his library party in America. So Prabhupada sent us there. And we didn't realize it at that time, but Prabhupada, for the last 18 months, wherever he was traveling, he was translating Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Charitamrita was the favorite book of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. In his years, just before he disappeared, he used to spend a great deal of time studying Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he predicted that in the future, people would learn Bengali just to enter into the music of Chaitanya Charitamrita. So Prabhupada, he was requested to translate that, and It took him 18 months to translate the entire book with its purports. And on the night of Rama Ekadashi, November 10th, 1974, Prabhupada completed the Chaitanya Charitamrita and wrote those concluding words where he gave a summary of how he was inspired by his spiritual master and how the importance of Vani Seva keeps the disciple and the spiritual master eternally associating. He wrote there that sometimes the personal or the vapu association with the spiritual master is appreciable and sometimes not, meaning that the spiritual master is not always physically present with the disciple. Prabhupada said no more than 5 or 10 times was Prabhupada in the personal association with his spiritual master. But through the Vani Seva, he always felt connection with his spiritual master. So Srila Prabhupada, in the translating of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, he gives that last chapter of the Sikshastaka. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he took that Sikshastaka and he compared it to 2 different aspects of devotional service. One was the process of attaining perfection, which is prema bhakti, going from Shraddha to prema. And he took from Shraddha, being the first sloka of Sikshastakam, all the way up to the supreme perfection of Mahabhava, being the last sloka of Sikshastakam. And then he also took those 8 slokas and referred them to the 8 divisions of Radha Krishna's pastimes, 3 hours each, the Nitya Leela of Radha and Krishna here in Vrindavan. So what Prabhupada did by translating this Chaitanya Charitamrita was he gave us the most confidential, essential teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Prabhupada was ill in the early days in the 60s, he didn't know whether he was going to be able to complete the Srimad Bhagavatam. He hadn't even considered doing the entire Chaitanya Charitamrita at that time, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. When he was originally making the Back to Godhead magazines, he had started verse-by-verse translations of these 2 books, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Chaitanya Charitamrita, and he was printing all those verses with the word-for-word translation, just as Prabhupada did with Srimad Bhagavatam in the Back to Godhead magazines. But because he didn't know whether he would be able to complete all this work, he sat down 1968, 1969, and he wrote summary studies. First, he wrote the summary study of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam and gave us Krishna book because he knew that the devotees needed that 10th canto in order to understand who the Supreme Personality of Godhead actually is. And he feared he might not get to the 10th canto considering his health. He also did a summary study of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which he called the Nectar of Devotion. And he did a summary study of the essential teachings that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave to his disciples and followers in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So those essential books we studied very carefully, scrutinizingly. Prabhupada would tell us to study all these books that he had given. And now finally we had the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Prabhupada was very determined to have that book printed as soon as possible. We've all heard of the pastimes of how Prabhupada, through a marathon, got all the books printed, BBT in Los Angeles, how the devotees struggled and worked together nonstop 24 hours to get those books printed, because Prabhupada had been In those 18 months, he was able to translate, but it was taking them years to do the printing. So Prabhupada, in these concluding words, he also thanks his disciples, particularly his editors. At that time, it was Sanskrit editors of Pradumna and Nitai, and his English editor, that's Jayadvaita, who was Brahmachari then. And he thanks all the boys and girls who help with all the publishing. And in that way, Prabhupada, he shows appreciation for all of his disciples who were assisting him to carry out the orders of his spiritual master. Hare Krishna. Do you want me to stop now?
No, Mataji, not at all. Slot is from 6 to 7. It is 6:30 now.
Okay, fine. So Srila Prabhupada, through his books, which are with us till today, we can associate with Srila Prabhupada. At one point, I asked Srila Prabhupada, because when he sent us to Bombay for distribution, we started traveling all over India to put his books in the schools and libraries. And we were feeling very lonely, not having any temples, not having any devotees, not having prasadam. So we asked Prabhupada if we could have deities to travel with. And Prabhupada instructed us that, he said, my books are your deities. They are Shabda Brahma, transcendental sound vibration. You worship my books. So how do we worship Prabhupada's books? We read them very carefully. This is why Prabhupada gave us the word-for-word translations in most of his books. We can understand every word of these shastras. We read them and then we share them with others, just like distributing prasadam. We share them by distributing them, by speaking about them, the importance of all the 64 principles of devotional service. 5 are the most important. That is, we chant the holy name of the Lord. By chanting the holy name of the Lord, we become enthused to worship the deity form of the Lord. We become learned by studying the Srimad Bhagavatam, and by associating with the devotees, we can make advancement, and by living in a holy place such as Mathura Mandala. So Prabhupada gave us these temples, which are non-different from the spiritual world. And he recommended in the temples we associate with the devotees. We regularly, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, we regularly every day should hear Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. And we should worship the deities very beautifully. Those 3 things go on in the temples, in the spiritual world. And this way we can make advancement in our process as described by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Sikshastakam. We start out with getting our hearts purified and chanting the holy name, understanding we're not at all qualified. We don't even have attraction to the holy name, but because of the power of the holy name, the Lord being present in his name, still we chant, even if there's no attraction. And then the method for chanting, Trinadapi Sunichena, we should, in a humble state of mind, we should chant the names of the Lord, always thinking himself lower than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree. Tolerant than a tree is very important for a devotee, because Prabhupada explained that, especially for the Western devotees, he would explain here in India that in the Western countries, there's no real austerity. There's money, there's everything, but the devotees have voluntarily given up a very comfortable life to come and live in the temples and to preach Krishna consciousness. So austerity is built into the devotee's life if we become serious about sharing Krishna consciousness. And then after that, we have to get rid of our anarthas, and that is, we don't want anything from chanting the holy name. We don't want name, fame, followers, nothing. We simply want to become the Lord's eternal associates. And after that, we come to understand our eternal relationship, i.e. Nanda Tanuja Kinkaram. We're simply eternal servants of the Supreme Lord. Somehow we've fallen into this ocean of material suffering. And just like when you fall into an ocean, a body of water, it's a very precarious situation, even if you're a good swimmer, especially if you fall in the ocean. But if you just get a little bit of land to stand on. So the prayer is by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that if we can just become a particle of dust at his lotus feet. After that, we begin to pray. When will I experience this love for Krishna by chanting the holy name? When will these symptoms of love appear on my body? And then finally, in the 7th sloka, we start to actually feel separation from the Supreme Lord and aspire for getting some taste, feeling that in his absence, one moment is like a millennium. And in the 8th, which is the last of the slokas, describing the mood of Srimati Radharani, the mood of Mahabhava. I was just reading because tomorrow being Radhastami, we're preparing for speaking about the glories of Srimati Radharani. When Srimati Radharani actually spoke that last sloka, some of these slokas can only be understood by Radharani, by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by Madhavendra Puri. So Radharani, she was waiting in her kunj for Krishna. He was very late, so she sent one of her duties to find out where Krishna was. Her duty met one of Chandravali's associates, Shaibya. And Shaibya very proudly told this maidservant of Radharani that, oh, Krishna's in the kunj of Chandravali. That's why she's not coming. So when the maidservant came back and told Radharani, she became very disturbed and angry and told her Sakis that don't allow Krishna to come into the kunj. So when Krishna finally did arrive late, he was very sorry, but he was not allowed into the kunj. So he was lamenting, and he went to Purnamasi. How could he get again the favor of Srimati Radharani? So Purnamasi sent Krishna to Vrinda Devi, and Vrinda Devi recommended, if you want to get to see Radharani again, she's so angry at you, you give up this form of Krishna, you take the form of a sannyasi, and you beg at her door, bhiksha. So Krishna followed everything that Vrinda Devi told him to do. He took the form of a sannyasi and began to beg at her door. And he sang a beautiful song all about, I'm just praying for love. I've learned this from my guru, Gandharvika. And when the gopis heard that, they brought him to Srimati Radharani. And Srimati Radharani was in great distress, having sent Krishna away in her anger. And she spoke this verse, Ashli Sabha. So this form of a sannyasi, Krishna being a sannyasi, Lalita had more or less cursed Krishna that as you have made Radharani cry, you will also be crying. So in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which is when Sri Krishna is trying to understand the sweetness that Radharani experiences by his love, and the pleasure that she experiences by receiving his love. Sri Krishna, in that golden hue of Radharani, is now crying for Srimati Radharani, just as Radharani was crying for him. So very beautifully, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu giving in this last chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita that Prabhupada so kindly translated for us, we're able to get a glimpse how we can go from Shraddha to Sadhu Sang, to Bhajana Kriya, then to Anartha Nivriti. All of these stages, we have faith first in the teachings of Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, that we should surrender to him. Then by associating with the devotees, we learn about the process of devotional service. While performing devotional service, we start to give up the unwanted habits so that we can become pure in our devotional service. And when we become purified, then we get steadiness in devotional service. And all of these processes are acquired by chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Of the 5 different recommended, of the 64, then of the 5, the 2 most important are the chanting of Hare Krishna and associating with senior devotees so that you can learn how to advance in the process. So then by becoming steady, nishta, we develop a taste, actually. It's no longer that we're being forced to do these things. We want to chant Hare Krishna. We want to engage in service of the devotees and the Supreme Lord in his deity form. We begin to understand that the Lord is actually present in his deity form. And we develop some ruchi, some taste. And then by associating with devotees, by rendering service to the Supreme Lord through his Archa Vigraha, our bhava, our relationship of love, gradually develops according to what our eternal relationship is with Krishna. And ultimately, by the chanting of Hare Krishna, by associating with the devotees, by worshiping the Supreme Lord, and particularly by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and living in a holy place in the association of devotees, we finally come to this final stage of prema. So Prabhupada has given us everything, beginning with the chanting of Hare Krishna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after Sri Krishna demands from Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, he's given him all the different types of dharma that he can follow. And then after giving him all these different processes of dharma, he says, now give them all up and just surrender to me. Manmana bhava madbhakto. Always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your respects unto me. But how to do that? These are the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in the most condensed form, through this Sikshastakam, we learn to go through these 8 different processes, through these 8 different slokas of the Ashtakam, to come to the final stage of love for Krishna, particularly in the mood of Srimati Radharani, because it was she who spoke the final sloka of Sikshastakam. So if anyone has any questions, we have a few minutes. Is anyone there?
Yes, certainly. Sakit Prabhu, you may go ahead.
Am I able to see the person when they ask the question?
Certainly. Shriji Radha Mataji, can you pin Sakit?
Yeah, I think that Mishra. Okay. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you very much for this wonderful nectarian pastime on Srila Prabhupada. So, Mataji, could you my request to you is that if you could share some pastime, your personal interaction with Srila Prabhupada, which has affected your life very much, and that will be very helpful for us also. Hare Krishna.
Yes, of course. That would take a few hours, but actually, my first time coming face to face with Prabhupada was when I received second initiation from him, because in 1970, he had returned to India to start the World Sankirtan Party. He initiated me when he was in Japan by letter, and then I had to wait until he returned in 1971, where I received second initiation at the New York Temple. So, as all of us probably have experienced in our devotional life, the first year is usually the toughest because we're coming from backgrounds, we have to completely turn our lives upside down. So it's very difficult. And having now being alone with Prabhupada to receive the Gayatri Mantra, I asked Prabhupada, how may I serve him more? He said, chant Hare Krishna. And then I said, is there anything more I can do? So, are you married? Yes. And then serve your husband. Well, my husband wasn't present. He had already left me within a year. So I said, well, is there anything more? So then Prabhupada, he didn't even take it seriously that I told him that we don't get along. It didn't even matter to him. I thought that it was life-shattering because in those days there was no question of separation or divorce, nothing like that. So for a woman to be in that situation in those early days in Iskcon was very difficult. But for Prabhupada, it wasn't important at all. He just said to me, well, then be a pujari. There's so many things. So this was a wonderful first meeting with Srila Prabhupada when I understood that it wasn't the end of the world if something went wrong in one's personal life. One can be a pujari. There are so many services. Wonderful. I can just continue in my devotional service to Prabhupada, and I don't have to worry about this marriage and the whole thing. Just go on with your devotional service. So then, having just received the second initiation, I was told that I had to chant the Gayatri Mantra 6 times a day for the offerings in the temple. And I wrote to Prabhupada, I said, is it all right to chant Gayatri Mantra so many times? And Prabhupada thought that in the letter he wrote back, it was as if I wanted to. I was just asking, is it okay to do it? So, because Prabhupada just told us to do it 3 times a day. And he said to me, why are you going to Gayatri Mantra? Hare Krishna mantra means more than any other mantra. It's the most powerful mantra. You have facility to chant Hare Krishna 24 hours a day, so do it. So this was another great, wonderful instruction that I got from Prabhupada in the very beginning of my devotional life, that the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is the most powerful mantra, and I should chant Hare Krishna 24 hours a day. So I've carried that on throughout my life. It's been now 53 years chanting Hare Krishna. And whenever I have a moment, I'm always chanting Hare Krishna. And steadily, every year, I try to increase my chanting, and I feel the difference. I would recommend everyone, don't stop at 16 rounds. That's the minimum. Increase your chanting. Increase your attachment to the holy name. And the more you chant Hare Krishna, the less you'll be disturbed by the external surroundings around you, because you'll always be connected to Krishna through the holy name. And then I can go on for hours. So if there are any other questions, otherwise I'll tell more instructions. But if anyone has any other questions, they can ask. No more? Okay, then I'll go on with more wonderful things that Prabhupada told me to do. Then we came to India. At that time, 1970, because Prabhupada had just started the World Sankirtan Party here in India, and my husband was a temple president of Philadelphia. But Gurudas, he told us Prabhupada had just given the instruction to go and open a temple in Vrindavan, and he invited us to come and help him. So we wrote to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, well, don't do anything hasty and haphazard. You first train someone to take over the temple, and then you can leave. So we, Rabindra Swarup, he was a new devotee, very qualified devotee. We trained him, and then we came to India. And in India, you have a lot of facility to have personal association with Srila Prabhupada. It was his home. So here in Vrindavan, I got to learn how to cook for Prabhupada from his sister. And then Prabhupada would have me cook independently for him. And I got to travel Vrindavan, Delhi, Ahmedabad, Bombay, Calcutta, Mayapur, so many different places, serving Srila Prabhupada and cooking for him. And of course, while cooking for Prabhupada, you're always on a daily basis, you're with Prabhupada. He tells you what he likes to eat. He tells you what you've done wrong. And in that way, you perfect your service to him. So a lot of instructions came from that. But ultimately, my heart being always in book distribution, I asked Prabhupada if we could distribute his books here in India. And he gave me many lifetime instructions at that time. He told me to put his books in all the schools and libraries in India, to put his books in the embassies, to lecture in the colleges in India, because people would be interested in hearing from foreigners. Everyone would come to listen. And to see that his books are stocked and distributed in Mayapur and Vrindavan. So since 1974, I've been doing those services. We still have the BBT library party here. We're distributing full sets of Srimad Bhagavatam to the major universities, colleges, and we have classic library sets that we're putting in the secondary schools and colleges who don't want the full Srimad Bhagavatam. So my whole life is dedicated to these instructions that Prabhupada gave me, and I always feel Prabhupada's presence. He's always giving me inspiration, how to distribute his books more and more. Now, instead of, we used to travel all over India, it was very difficult. Now we have teams in big cities. In Kerala, we have a team. In Tamil Nadu, we have a team. In MP, we have a team. In UP, we have a team. And those devotees, young brahmacharis who have the strength and the enthusiasm, they could go to the schools and colleges. And instead of struggling to get orders and payments, I get donations from wonderful devotees. And we're able to give the full sets of books now for free to the colleges. So it's a very one-track mind. I am always just meditating in my chanting, how to distribute Prabhupada's books more and more. And in that way, I'm always connected with Prabhupada and always hoping for his mercy and always trying to help him in his mission to his spiritual master. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mataji, for your priceless time. I think we have another one question from GAIL Gail. Do you want to ask your question, Gail Prabhu? Or from Gail? Okay, I think we already got the nectar. Thank you so much, Mataji, for your priceless time. Yes, we got a Gail again. So let me ask to unmute. Yes, you're on mute. Please ask your question.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Yeah, I heard when you said that the Shikshastakam represents the stages of devotional service, but I think you also mentioned that it represents the various goals also.
those are the goals, those different stages. The goal is prema at the end, from Shraddha to prema. And what the other thing that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that the Sikshastakam represents is the eightfold pastimes of Radha and Krishna. These are the 24-hour pastimes broken up into 8 sections, 3 hours each, beginning with the early morning and going till the nighttime pastimes here in Vrindavan. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he correlates these 8 slokas with the eightfold pastimes of Radha and Krishna. So in that way, those 3 things are going on simultaneously. How we're developing from Shraddha to Prema, how the pastimes of Krishna are going on a daily basis from morning till night, and how we're meditating on how we can be chanting the holy name and becoming more attached. That's
Okay.
according to Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Yeah, and also we count 9 stages, right? But they're only
Yeah,
only
but they're only
8.
8 slokas. He combines the bhava and prema.
In the last.
Yeah. Well, he says 7 and 8 are bhava and prema.
Oh, wait, 7 and 8
Yeah.
are so is it that 7 is bhava and number 8 is prema? How does that work?
Well, I mean, even when I was reading it, it was a question mark to me. He said that 1 to 5 are sadhana bhakti, and then 6 is when we understand our eternal identity as eternal servants of the Lord, and then 7 and 8 are when we come to the stages of Nishtha, Ruchi, and Bhava, and Prema. So somehow or other between those 8, he's fit in all 9.
Where can we find this?
Yeah,
reference?
if you wanna understand it in more detail, there's a small book written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur called Bhajan Rahasya.
Oh yeah, I have that. Okay.
And you have it. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow I have to speak about Radharani, so I was trying to get information, and I realized that these 2 things, the 2 lectures might help each other. So, one talking about the holy name and another talking about the glories of Srimati Radharani in the last sloka. So I was studying the Bhajan Rahasya for that reason.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for all that you shared today, Mataji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All right. Thank you so much, Mataji, for your priceless time. Iskcon Kirtan Ministry is heartily glad for your wonderful time, for your wonderful pastimes with Srila Prabhupada, and tell the story of how Srila Prabhupada struggled in America to establish Iskcon. So, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji and Mataji, welcome back once again to the World Holy Name Festival organized by Iskcon Kirtan Ministry from 17th to 23rd September 2023. We are celebrating day 6. Tomorrow is going to be the big day. Tomorrow is Radha Ashtami, and we have a great lineup for you. Tomorrow, His Holiness Loknath Swami Maharaj will join us for Radha Ashtami lecture. Then we have a Kirtan Standard seminar presentation by His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj. Then after that, we'll go to Mayapur for Kirtan, and His Holiness Niranjan Swami Maharaj will join us from the Mayapur. But now it's time to go to the Mauritius and learn how to play Mridanga and Kartal by the perfect personality, the great musician. Let me call upon the stage His Grace Vaikuntha Murthy Prabhuji, and for introduce him, let me call upon the stage our life and soul, the organizer and he, Her Grace Deen Anukampa Mataji, to introduce him.
Hare Krishna. Marvel obeisances. Vaikuntha Murthy Prabhu, where are you?
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
All the glories, all goes to Srila Prabhupada.
Absolutely. What can I say about this wonderful soul? He He's from Mauritius, as Rupeshwar Prabhu has said. Prabhuji, I need to see your face. Can we move your camera somewhat?
Yes, I'm just trying to include my own self and the Mridanga and everything. So I think the only way I can do this is by moving further back. I hope this is okay.
Yeah, the sun is not troubling you too much.
The sun is setting, so I think in a few minutes it'll be okay.
All right, great. So, I want to tell you something about Vaikunthamurti Prabhu. He has been involved in loads of projects, right from Iskcon Resolve in London to writing books and projects. Now, who does not know Vrajamandal Darshan? Vaikunthamurti Prabhu was the heart and soul of Vrajamandal Darshan. He played a pivotal and crucial role in compilation, completion, and production of this book, which is nothing short of a masterpiece. And also, he is also busy writing his own books, so he's a real avid author as well. Vaikunthamurti Prabhu is, or has been playing the Mridanga from a very young age. And I especially welcome him to the World Holy Name Festival because I don't think any of you are aware that he's actually drawn up and put together a first-class curriculum to teach Mridanga. So if Prabhuji is fine, I'd like to share his contact details with the participants who are here today. So if there's anyone who wants to learn how to play Mridanga, the way it should be played with the proper raga, tala, whatever else terminology is used, they can do that. And without further ado, I want to just welcome Vaikunthamurti Prabhu, and I want to welcome you all. Sit back, listen. If you have a mridanga, pull it out, put it on your lap. If you have kartals, take them out, listen, and just relish the session. Thank you so much, Vaikunthamurti Prabhu, for being here today.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Dinanakampa Mataji. Thank you so much to all the devotees for having me in your association today. Just a brief sound check. I want to make sure that you're hearing properly everything that I'm saying, and also, can you hear the sound of the mridanga? If you could please just confirm.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We'll start with some offerings and prayers, some obeisances before we begin. Om Agyanam Tivrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshitarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. I would like to also chant the prayer of obeisances to the mridanga itself. I can share it with you later on, maybe in the chat, or maybe I could just send a screenshot of it later on if any of you are interested in learning and memorizing this verse. It's very, very beautiful, describing the glories and the qualities of the mridanga. Namo Jagannatha Shutaya, Namo Mridanga Lavanam, Rasa Madhuri Sahasraguna Samyuktam, Namo Mridanga, Namo Namo, Namo Baladevaya, Namo Namo. The translation: I offer my respectful obeisances unto the son of Sri Jagannath Mishra, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I offer my obeisances unto the mridanga drum, from which sweet and nectarian sound emanates. I offer my obeisances again and again unto the mridanga, which has thousands of good qualities. And I offer my obeisances unto Lord Baladev, who assumes the form of the mridanga to serve Lord Chaitanya. So as you can understand from the mantra, the pranam mantra of Sri Mridanga it is considered to be non-different from Lord Balaram. We know that Lord Balaram expands as all the paraphernalia that's needed for the service of Krishna, and that includes the Mridanga. So I generally encourage all my Mridanga students to always chant these introductory prayers and the pranam of the Mridanga before they begin their practice, before they begin playing, and also whenever I'm having classes. That's the standard we follow. Reason is so that it establishes in the consciousness what we're doing and why we're doing it. So just a little bit about the Mridanga itself briefly, so you understand why this is also necessary. Mridanga, the word Mridanga is basically a composite of two words, Mrid and Anga. Mrid means clay. So traditionally, the authentic way of making the Mridanga is with clay. The body is made of clay, and then the heads are made of leather and the straps as well. Of course, now there are different types of Mridangas that have been made to be adapted to different situations, so they last longer. But originally, that's what the Mridanga was made of. So Mrid is clay, and Anga means limb, like an arm or a leg. It's a limb. So one may wonder why do we say that it's a limb of clay? Because Mridanga literally means that, a limb of clay. So how do we understand that? Well, it basically means that the Mridanga player develops such an intimate connection with the Mridanga that it acts almost as a limb of their own body. Just that it's not a limb that's made of bone and flesh; it's a limb that's made of clay. That says a lot about the essence of playing Mridanga, and also the effort that goes into playing Mridanga. Because for something to become like a limb of your body, you need to have enough of a command of the service of the art of playing, that whatever you think is executed by your hands. Just like if you think that you want to walk, you want to go up the steps or down, and your body follows suit. So in the same way, if you think of a particular rhythm, you think of something that you want to play, it's the effort must be made on the part of the Mridanga player, that he develops enough proficiency, skill, clarity of playing everything, so that his Mridanga playing acts as a limb. Basically, it's like you think of something and you're able to execute it. And that's a very tall order. Of course, it depends on how far one wants to go in learning Mridanga and playing Mridanga. One can also maintain a very simple level of playing, but it's still very, very sweet and able to accompany most of the basic kirtans that we need. So what I'm going to now demonstrate today is some introductory, you can call them beats. Actually, what needs to be understood is that whatever you're playing, when you're playing Mridanga, none of this is random. It's deliberate, and it's something very specific that's played for particular situations. Which means that everything you play is a composition. Now, there are two types of compositions in Mridanga. One type of composition is called, the word used for compositions is mantras. Just like we chant mantras, so the compositions played on Mridangas, they are called mantras, Mridanga mantras. And there are two types. There are mantras that are meant for the beginner student, especially, but actually for everyone. These mantras are like exercise mantras. They're actually meant to train our hands to move in the way they're meant to move. They give us the flexibility we need in our wrists and in our fingers. They also give us a striking power. So we need flexibility, we need striking power, we need clarity while we're playing the mridanga. All these are essential qualities of good mridanga playing, of proper mridanga playing. And these mantras, they are exercise mantras. We call them, you can say, sadhana mantras. So they're meant only specifically to develop these qualities that the mridanga player needs, and also they inculcate in the mridanga player the sense of rhythm as well, how to keep time, how to play according to rhythm. So those are the practice, we call them the practice mantras. And as the student learns these practice mantras, they also learn basically everything that's needed. It equips them with everything they need to play mridanga and kirtan. That's what the practice mantras are actually meant for. So you learn the different types of bowls. Bowls are basically strokes on the mridanga, the way you place your hand on the mridanga, how you hit the mridanga, all of that. And then, so those are practice mantras. And then you have the kirtan mantras, which are the mantras that are directly played in kirtan in particular situations. So what I'll attempt to do is to give at least one mantra of each type. So one practice mantra that I'll share with you today, the most basic practice mantra that's needed, that every beginner mridanga student learns. And then I'll also give you one basic kirtan mantra that it doesn't require extreme level of proficiency, that you can use for any simple kirtan, even in the temple. And I would encourage you, if you're interested in learning mridanga, of course I cannot cover everything within an hour. But I would encourage you to take notes right now. If you have pen and paper, please take notes. And then you will have whatever I'm sharing with you. It will stay with you and it'll be useful for you. If you want to begin your mridanga practice, you can use that. So I'm going to begin, and I want to make this also interactive. I want to leave space for questions. So I think actually before I begin, I'm going to ask if anybody has any questions right now. And if you don't, then I'll begin with the basic practice mantra. So does anybody have anything they want to ask? Okay, so if there are no questions, then let's begin. So the first mantra, the root mantra of mridanga playing, has 4 syllables: te, re, ke, and ta. So if you want, you can write this down. Te is te, it's pronounced te. Re is re, and then ke is khe, ke, it's pronounced K, and ta is ta. So I'm just going to explain how these mantras are, how these syllables, these bowls are played on the mridanga. So let's start with the first one, te. Te is a closed syllable. It's played on the small head. It's a closed sound. It's I'll play it for you. Te, te, te. So the way I played it is using these 4 fingers. In mridanga, when we do hand practice, it alternates these four fingers and the thumb. So the first syllable is te. So the four fingers play a closed sound. So how this works is, if you can see the mridanga head, so these are the outer parts of the head, and then in the center here is the black part, the gab of the mridanga. So these four fingers, they actually come all the way inside, but not completely. So they don't sort of go beyond here. They don't go all the way here. They stop right here, like this. And the four fingers remain together, and the hand goes like this, horizontally, and strikes the mridanga like this. Te. And that's the closed sound of the mridanga. Te. Te. So I hope that's clear. The second syllable is played with a thumb. So re is the second one, and the way the thumb makes contact with the mridanga is, well, if you look at your hand, it's a good question. Is the small head on the left side? Well, first of all, you will have to experiment and see what works better for you. I'm generally a right-handed person, but somehow for playing mridanga, I learned mridanga the left-handed way. So some mridanga players play, the small head is on the right, and some play on the left. So that's for you to discover. Generally, our hands are not of equal strength. One of our hands is stronger. Generally, the stronger hand is on the smaller head. The reason is because the smaller head does a lot more work than the larger head. So therefore, it's the stronger hand that needs to be on that side. But it's for each mridanga student to figure out. In the beginning, I ask students to try both ways, and then to see which one is more comfortable for them, and then they can learn mridanga that way. So ste, that's the first syllable. Now the second syllable is re. Now re is with the thumb. Now what needs to be understood is that our hands, this is the back of the hand, and this is the front part of the hand. So it's going to be played with basically the part of the thumb, which is exactly in between the back and the front. So right here. And also, you can see how the finger has basically three parts: the top part, middle part, and the lower part. So it's the point of contact of the thumb is here, between the top and the middle part of the finger. So right here. And this is what makes contact with the middle part of the head. It's important to develop good habits in the beginning of one's mridanga practice, because if those habits aren't good, then it takes much more energy to fix those bad habits later on, as you've developed the tendency to play in that way. So it's important to have the good habit of aiming right. You have to have precision in how you're striking the mridanga. It's better to play slow, but to play with a correct technique and to produce clear sound from the mridanga than to rush and play faster. Playing faster, that comes with time. As you practice and your hands develop flexibility, you can start playing with more speed. But it's good to get the technique from the very beginning. So, because this is something I often notice some mridanga students do, is that they're a bit negligent with playing the re. The thumb tends to go like a little too far down, and so forth. And so these things affect the quality of your playing. They affect the quality of the sound, even that you're getting from the mridanga, and it's poor technique. So you have to have the right technique. So te, re. So you can see I went from te to re, and when I played re, my thumb came landed right in the middle of the mridanga, not anywhere else. So something I encourage students to do in the beginning of learning mridanga also is, if of course these things become a reflex later on, but in the beginning, for you to get it right, to get the technique right, you practice in front of a mirror. This will help you a lot. So then you can see very clearly where you're placing your hands. Once you get it down, it becomes a reflex, it becomes like a muscle memory, and then you'll be able to get it without even looking. But in the beginning, use a mirror so you get it right. Te, re. Now, what happened from te to re? So I'm going to demonstrate this in slow motion. So this is te, and then my hand went like this, and re. So the direction of the movement, I'm going to change my position so you see my hand very clearly. The direction of the movement is, this was te, and then this is re. So there's a kind of, I think the best way I can describe it is there's a kind of like almost like a whipping motion involved, like say you're using a whip. So the dynamics of the movement is very similar to that. So it's actually your hands are kind of like whipping against the mridanga. So te, re, re. Another thing that's useful to note down is, I encourage my students to do this, is if you're having, if any particular part of a mridanga mantra is a challenge for you, isolate it and practice only that until you get it right. There's nothing says that you need to always play the entire mantra. No, you can just isolate the thing that you're having trouble with and keep practicing it until you get it right. And then you integrate it back into the whole mantra that you're meant to learn. So te, re, te, re. So let's say I had a problem with re. Let's say re is difficult, because it actually is. For beginners, it takes a while to get it right. So you can practice re alone, like this. So you can see that I'm actually whipping my thumb onto the mridanga, but it's not random whipping. It's whipping with there's precision. It's like I'm aiming for the middle of the mridanga head, not down, not in other parts. So te, re. Then ke is the third syllable, and ke is played on the big head of the mridanga. It's played with the other hand, and the part of the hand you use to play ke is a muffled sound. It's a closed sound also, just like te. This is ke. So it's played using all four fingers of the right hand or the left hand, as the case may be. And you can see again that there are three parts in your fingers. So it's played using only the top two parts of the fingers, like this. So not here, not this, just this and above, like this. What the part that's covered with my other hand, that. And that is, it strikes the mridanga in the center. It has to be in the middle for you to get the clear, closed sound that you're looking for. So it shouldn't be like this, like that. It shouldn't be like played with the whole hand. No, your technique should be clear. Actually, the indication of whether you're doing it right is the quality of the sounds that you're getting from the mridanga when you're playing it. So in that way, this is also something I say to my students is, see, I have a class with you and I'm giving you the technique. but you should kind of also become your own teacher in the sense of when you're playing by yourself at home, hear what you're playing and correct yourself when the sound is not what it's meant to be. So K, this is the closed sound. So K, Re, K. So of the 4 syllables, 3 of them are closed. Re, Re, K. Now the last one is called Ta. Ta is again played with the 4 fingers, but now the sound is different. Ta is an open sound. This is Ta. Ta. So you're still using the 4 fingers like you used to play Te. This is Te, and this is Ta. This is Te, Ta. What's the difference? The difference is that when you played Te, the place you are aiming for on the mridanga is with your 4 fingers coming up to here. Not beyond, but just right here. Te. And now when you're trying to play Ta, what you need to do is pull your hand back a little bit and then tilt it slightly. So this was Te, and then pull the hand back and tilt it a little bit and strike. So the place when you're playing Ta, the place you're striking on the mridanga is right here. It's the rim. So yes, in the beginning, you'll feel some bruises, but they're skin bruises that it gradually, as you practice, it'll toughen up the hands, and then you will stop feeling any discomfort or pain while you're doing that. So what you do now is Ta is played using the place where you strike the mridanga is right underneath this kind of line that separates the bottom and the middle part of the fingers. So this is the middle, this is the bottom, and right in the middle is these lines. So right underneath them, it's right underneath the joints, actually, it's underneath the finger joint. And I don't know if you can see my hand closer to the camera. You can see the calluses in my fingers, which developed from playing Ta. So all of these bowls that you play on the mridanga, all these strokes that you have, they'll toughen your hands in these particular specific places of your hands from having played them over time. So these come from striking the mridanga here when this hits against the rim like that. Ta. And I think you can hear that this is an open sound. So you need to play and practice mridanga and play mridanga in such a way that this contrast between closed and open sounds is very clear and very audible, and that's really the essence of what makes mridanga sweet. You heard in the pranam mantra of the mridanga, rasa madhuri sahasra guna samyuktam. Rasa madhuri, the mridanga drum is full of sweet rasa and is endowed with thousands of good qualities. That comes from playing clearly and distinguishing very clearly from what's closed and what's open sound. So now what I'm going to show you is how I play all 4 bowls in a sequence. And that's another objective of these practice mantras. These practice mantras enable the student to develop strength, flexibility in their hands. That's one. But also the other objective is it trains them to develop rhythm of playing. So when you learn these bowls and you play the mantras, they're meant to be played in sequence. They're also meant to be played in rhythm, because some students, some have a natural sense of rhythm, some do not, and and it's by these practice mantras that they develop this sense of rhythm that then you use and you apply later on when you play in kirtan. So te re kheta is 4 syllables, and the amount of time in between them is equal. So it's basically like 4 seconds. It's like it's like saying 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it cycles back to 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the mantra is te re ke ta, te re ke ta. The principle of learning these mantras and practicing these mantras is that you memorize them, you recite them and play them, and as you complete the mantra, you immediately seamlessly cycle back to the beginning of the mantra, and then you say it again, and then you play it again, like that. So after you've said Tere Kheta, you go back and you say it again without leaving any space, without leaving any gaps, without stopping after you've done one cycle of it. So, so the beginning of it is the recitation of the mantra itself. Te, re, ke, ta, te, re, ke, ta, te, re. Notice that I'm saying it with equal time. I'm not saying tere, keta, tere. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying te, re, ke, ta. Equal time between all 4 syllables. Okay, so then you say, you speak the mantra, and you play it. Te, re, ke, ta. 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 Now, another bit of advice is as you're transitioning from one syllable to another while you're doing this practice mantra, keep your hand on the mridanga after you've played the syllable. Don't let it bounce off. Like, for example, te. After playing te, my hand remains on the mridanga. It doesn't go away from the mridanga. It stays there, te. And then re. Now, after I played re, my thumb remains here. Even while I'm playing ke, the 3rd syllable, my thumb is still here. Ke, re, ke. You see, as I play ke, my thumb is still here. Ke, and then ta. So I go from here to ta. Another advantage of learning in this way and playing in this way is that you're going to have the very clear sound as you're hearing it. Because if your hand goes away from the mridanga, what generally tends to happen as you're playing the mridanga, as you strike the mridanga, the sound travels through the mridanga and exits on the other side. And same for when you're playing on the other head, it resonates through the mridanga and comes out on the other side. So keeping your hand on the mridanga contains the sound within the body of the mridanga. And that's what gives you this clear experience of the sound that you're getting from the mridanga. So as I'm playing te, you see, notice that my other hand is here. It's not off the mridanga, it's on the mridanga. Te, re, ke, ta, te, re. So as I'm striking here, sound is traveling into the mridanga and staying inside. Te, re, ke, ta. Now, your rhythm is 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, it's important to remember now what the purpose of this mantra is. It's a practice mantra, correct? Now, what is it meant for? Yeah, it's meant to give us a sense of rhythm. It's meant also to make the hands flexible and strong. You will achieve that when you master the mantra and you're able to increase the speed of the mantra. Actually, Bablu Prabhu, he teaches in his book that the indication of a student achieving, you can say, basic. It's actually not mastery. Mastery is not the right word. It's competence. It's basic competence of a practice mantra is when your hands can play it faster than you're able to say it. Because in the beginning, you're speaking it and you're playing it at the same time. Re, re, ke, ta. Re, re, ke, ta. Re, re, ke, ta. Now, I'm going to increase the speed. There's a risk that the sound is we're going to lose some sound, because I did a test with one of my students a little earlier. And my student said that as I began to play, I don't have that problem on Google Meet, but somehow Zoom, I'm not sure if it sort of allows for faster sounds. I think sometimes it cuts. So if it cuts, I think it's inevitable, but you'll see my hands moving, so you'll kind of understand. So I'll increase the speed gradually. Re, re, ke, ta. 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 I hope the sound didn't cut, but the idea of developing flexibility and strength is this. It's what I just demonstrated. Is you're reciting and you're playing, and at some point you will no longer be able to recite it as fast as you can play, and that's competence. But you need to go beyond that. Also, you keep practicing until your hands develop the speed that's required. Do not increase speed at the cost of quality, of clarity of sound. You may be wondering, why am I insisting so much on this? Well, it's the essence of Mridanga. If you meditate deeply on what Mridanga is and meant to sound like, what it's for, and then these things it kind of becomes obvious, because Krishna has senses. He's Rishikesha, Rishikesha, Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. We're using our senses to give pleasure to Krishna's senses, which means that as we're playing Mridanga, Krishna is listening to us. And we want to offer Krishna the best, right? We want to offer the Lord the best possible offering we can make in any area, whether it's what we're cooking or whatever. So similarly, in Mridanga playing, we want Krishna's ears to be to have a pleasant experience of hearing the sound of the Mridanga. So that is the meditation of the Mridanga student. Also, over time, with some maturity and practice, the Mridanga student comes to the realization at some point in their practice that that it's actually not that they're playing an instrument. It's that they are the instrument, and they're being engaged by Lord Balaram, who's the Mridanga, in the service of the Lord. Balaram is serving, we're assisting, we are the instruments of Balaram. So it sort of turns the awareness on its head. So I'm not playing an instrument, I'm the instrument who is being played. And this sort of submissive consciousness makes the Mridanga student very humble and beg for the mercy for Mridanga knowledge to be revealed to them. so that they can be the instrument, so that they can offer some satisfaction to Krishna as best as they can. So it's a very deep meditation. These mantras, also like Teriketa and also other mantras and so on, they come from, they're not made up. They're not the fabrication of somebody. They come in parampara. We have our Siddhanta that's coming down in parampara. But even music knowledge also comes through parampara. We have our acharyas in our group parampara who are accredited with having given us musical knowledge to accompany Harinam Sankirtan. And there's Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivas Acharya, Shyamananda Pandit, like that. They have given us musical knowledge for the service of the holy names. So this prayerful approach is what enables the student to learn and progress in Mridanga. So I'll take a couple of questions now if anyone has any, and because yes, time is short. We're already 45 minutes into the presentation, and I can teach the next mantra, which is used in Kirtan, and you can note that down also if you want. But before that, if anyone has any questions, and if not, then I'll proceed with the next.
Yes, we got a question
yes,
from Saket.
Yes. Please ask your question, Saket Mishra.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for teaching us this. And actually, my question, Prabhuji, is that you told that when we are playing on our own, we would have to check every time if the sound is proper or not. So, but our ears are not trained properly to know what is the proper sound that is being produced by the mridanga. So while practicing ourselves, how to be sure that the sound that is coming is of the maximum quality?
Well, two things. First of all, you need a teacher, because the teacher corrects mistakes that a student can make. So if as you're practicing and you go back to the teacher and you play in front of the teacher will fix all these all these imperfections that are there. That's why a teacher is necessary. And secondly, if it can help in some way, I don't want to make this too esoteric, but it's a little bit like the mridanga has a voice. Like I said, with the instrument, it's the mridanga who's the mridanga has a kind of voice of its own. So if you're practicing these mantras properly, you should kind of begin to hear the mridanga speaking actually. So I'll play Tereketa again and try to pay attention. It's like try to think in this way, that try to hear the mridanga actually say the mantra. I'm sure you can hear the mridanga say it, right? Can you hear the mridanga speak? Te, re, ke, ta, te, re, ke, ta, te, re, ke, ta. Right? You got it? You can hear that. So again, to answer your question, the 2 points is, first of all, the teacher is going to correct things that need to be corrected, but also you're not with the teacher 24/7, right? Well, traditionally students would actually be with their teacher like all day. But the way we currently transmit knowledge is it's not really the way it works in this day and age. You have some time that you spend with the teacher and he gives you something to work on, to practice, and then you're practicing on your own at home. So then while you're doing it by yourself, you need to check for these things. Try to hear the second part of the answer is try to hear the mridanga say the mantra. try to make the mridanga say it. That's a useful guide. So mirror, as I said in the beginning, practice in front of a mirror. Because if your hand is in the wrong place, you won't get the sound you're looking for. So first of all, the first thing is make sure your hand is where it's meant to be on the mridanga. Then the second thing is to hear that sound and try to hear the mridanga speak it. And then in this way, even if you're not with your teacher, if he's not there to see what you're doing, you will still make progress. You'll still be able to correct yourself. And then of course you have to go back to your teacher, and then if some mistake is there, he's going to help you with that. I hope this answers your question. So a question from it: What if one doesn't have a mridanga? Can you give us an alternative thing on what you can practice over hand movement until we get the actual mridanga? As if one waits, might lose memory or knowledge of what learned today. I'm not sure if I understand the question completely. Well, you do need a mridanga. So try to get a mridanga. It doesn't have to be a new mridanga. It doesn't have to be a very expensive mridanga. It can be for beginners. You can anything. The most important thing for beginner is make the hand flexible and strong. So anything will do. So yes, but you do need a mridanga. There's not really something else you can practice these mantras on. I hope that's okay. I'm not sure if I answered the question completely. And if so, you can also contact me later on, and because time is a little short, we only have 10 minutes now. I'm going to present now a mantra that is played in Kirtan, and this is called the Das Pahiratal, more commonly. So the most common mantra that's actually played when we're, let's say, we're starting with the simplest form of Kirtan, Srila Prabhupada's pranam mantras, Panchatattva, Mahamantra, and the Mahamantra in the simplest melody that Srila Prabhupada himself taught. So now any mantra you learn, like I taught Teriketa, any mantra you learn needs to be first of all memorized. You have, without learning the mantra by heart and being able to speak it, say it by heart, or play it by heart, you're not going anywhere. So that's the first step, is memorization. And then everything else comes after that. So Das Pahirital, in the simplest way of playing it, is Dhe, Te, Ta, Tak, Te, 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 Ta, Kick, Kine, Da, Gi, Da, Gi, Da, Dhe, Te, Ta, Tak, Te, 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 Ta, Kick, Kine, Da, Gi, Da, Gi, Da, Dhe. So I'm not expecting that within the next 9 minutes you're going to learn it. So I'm just going to demonstrate this, so you can understand how it applies. So this is not a practice mantra. This is now a Kirtan mantra. This has direct application in Kirtan. So I'll just sing and play along, and then you can see how it fits. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Aschatadeshatari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I don't know if you were able to hear it clearly enough. I'm getting a suggestion here for switching on the setting. Well, I guess there's only 6 minutes left, so maybe next time I do something on Zoom, I'm going to take this I'm going to apply this suggestion. Thank you, Prabhu. Original sound for musician in the Zoom audio setting. Okay, thank you. So this is what I just played. This is Das Paire Tal. It's the basic, the common name for it. They call it the Prabhupada Tal, Prabhupada beat, because this is what Srila Prabhupada taught his followers in the very beginning of Iskcon to accompany. Of course, now music has evolved so much since the beginning days of Iskcon, but this is kind of like the basic mantra that anyone needs to learn to be able to accompany the chanting of the holy names. Now, the principle of learning this is the same as the practice mantra. So like I explained earlier, Terekhita is, so you have to memorize it first. You write the bowls down, you learn them by heart, you learn the correct technique of playing, and then you play it, without interruption. You recite and you play, and then when you're able to play it well enough, faster than you can say it, or as fast as it's meant to be played, then you've learned it properly. So the same way, the same method, the same approach applies to learning any mantra, including the mantras that we use in Kirtan, like the one that I just played. So you would need the bowls, you would need to write them. Hey, te ta tak te 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 ta, kik kine da gi da gi da. You'd learn it by heart, you'd recite it. You would need to know what each bowl represents in terms of how your hand is meant to move. So day is like this, then te ta tak te ta tak te 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 ta. So like this, you would learn it step by step, memorize it, learn the correct way of moving your hand on the mridanga. Then once you've memorized it, it becomes a reflex. You're not thinking about it anymore. It's happening automatically. Actually, the Bablu Prabhu also says that the sign of one having learned Kirtan mantra nicely is that they're able to sing and play at the same time, which means it's no longer something they're doing it subconsciously now. So it's gone into their memory to such an extent that they don't need to think about it. Their hands do it automatically. Then your brain can do something else while you're playing the Mridanga mantra, which means singing. You can sing and you can play at the same time. We have 3 minutes left. I see some questions. There's some hands raised. Dinanukampa Mataji, please use the time asking any questions, and you can also end whenever it's time to move on to the next part of the program. Don't wait for me to terminate the program. You can just finish whenever you need to.
Okay, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for this priceless information. Someone musically challenged like myself, and I've learned something today. But I do have a question. So now you've given us the way, the basic method of learning to play the mridanga. But you know, when you have a kirtan, you have an array of instruments. So how do they synchronize? If you are giving us this kind of methodology to learn to play properly and with precision, then surely a kirtan which has an array of instruments also have to be precisionally played, if you want to put it that way, in order to create the perfect scenario for the actual kirtan. It's a holistic thing, right? It's not just a mridanga or a kartal or a harmonium or whatever else, or the kirtanier for that. It is a holistic package in service of the Lord. So
That's correct.
Yeah, so how would you synchronize all those instruments? Do they all have to know how the other one plays? Do they have to be familiar, or can a couple of strangers just come together and sit down and, you know, boom, bang, you have a kirtan? Is there a difference in the quality of the kirtan when you talk about the sound and the
there's a huge difference if you're playing together with devotees who you practice with. The quality is very different, and if you're playing with devotees who you don't practice with. At the same time, musicians who know their craft also understand. So even if they may not be practicing together, but sitting together spontaneously in kirtan, they understand each other and they're able to play. The way this works is, it'll take a long time to explain. I'll try to make this as brief as possible. This comes in the section of my course where I teach theory, music theory, because then that involves the understanding of how the other instruments also come together along with the mridanga. But essentially, you could say the definition of music is sound organized in time. Time is kind of like your platform upon which you're constructing music, using the sounds of the instruments that you're playing. So the mridanga is bringing something onto that platform, which is the mantras that are played. The harmonium is bringing something else onto that platform, using the keys, the notes of the melody that are being sung. And if there's something else, the flute, sitar, whatever it is, they're all working on a common platform. And that platform is time. So it's a very deep subject. It requires training. It can't be answered within a few minutes. But essentially, this is when one learns music, they learn how the music they're producing exists within time. And then time is that reference for every instrument that's coming together. They're all working on a common platform. So in this way, the synchronization happens. Is the measurement unit that I am using is the same measurement unit that the harmonium is using, and that the kartal is using, and that the singer is also using. We're using the same measurement unit. Although the sound we're producing is different. The kartal sound is different to the mridanga sound, but we're working on the same platform and using the same measurement unit. And when we are trained in that way, then synchronization is possible. Then it's pleasing to sound. So it requires training. It's not rocket science. It really isn't. It isn't. If it's explained mathematically, and then it clicks and it makes sense. Anyone, so even somebody who has no prior experience with music at all, if it's explained properly mathematically and they get it, they can make really nice music with other musicians as well. It's not rocket science, but it is a science. Without being rocket science, it is also still a science. and it needs to be taught, and it needs to be practiced. I hope this answers it. It's difficult to answer a question like this within a few minutes, but essentially that's what it is.
Yeah. Makes sense, because sometimes I notice that the leading Kirtan singer does get a little bit annoyed with the instrument players, and I always wondered why that happened. And that could possibly happen because there isn't that synchronization that he is looking for.
Yeah, there's synchronization is one thing. And then another consideration in whether music is pleasing or potentially maybe a little bit annoying even is rasa. As we heard in the pranam, rasa madhuri sahasraguna. You don't put salt in sweet rice. You don't put salt in kheer. You put sugar in kheer. So you need to know what goes with what. As the singer's picking a particular melody and singing it in a certain way, the mridanga needs to, and the other instruments need to be sensitive to that and provide something that is compatible with the mellow, the rasa of that kirtan, of that tune, of that melody that's being sung, not something that's contradictory to it. It's a science. It takes experience to understand it. It takes also some training.
Newfound respect to all those devotees who before a kirtan session actually practiced it, because they're getting in tune with whoever is going to be sitting there with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I've shared your number with them, Vaikunthamurti Prabhu. Is there anything else you'd like me to share, an email address or anything? Because
no, I think my number is fine. That's the easiest way to reach me. And then if somebody wants to learn, then we'll take it from there, and then I can give you email addresses and everything beyond that. But I think for now, if anyone is interested in learning, then I'm not taking any new students. We can establish contact, but I'm not taking any new students for now. I have to complete the curriculum with students I already have. But as we conclude this year and I begin next year, I may take some new students. So if anyone wants to learn, then they can, let's get a conversation started, and then we can take it from there.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you to Iskcon Kirtan Ministry and all the organization team involved. Thank you, Rupeshwar Prabhu. Thank you, Dinanukampa, Mataji. I hope you found this useful and satisfying.
Pleasure was all ours, and I hope that this is the beginning of a long-standing relationship with World Holy Name Festival and Iskcon Kirtan Ministry. We hope to see you here again and again. Vaikunthamurti Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. His Grace Vaikunthamurti Prabhu ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Such a nice and clear message from His Grace Vaikunthamurti Prabhuji. Really nice teaching how to play mridanga and the science that he just shared. So Prabhuji and Mataji, welcome to the World Holy Name Festival 2023 organized by Iskcon Kirtan Ministry. We are celebrating day 6. Tomorrow is going to be the beautiful day, Radha Ashtami celebration. Just Adivas ceremony just started here in Ujjain. And tomorrow we have packed the lineup for you. Tomorrow is going to be the show, stopper show. So we have His Holiness Loknath Swami Maharaj for Radha Ashtami special message. Then after that, Kirtan is standard guideline by His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj. Then we'll go to the Mayapur and have His Holiness Niranjan Swami Maharaj for International Kirtan. So now it's time to start the International Kirtan. Let's go to Germany, where we have His Grace Adhiras Prabhuji. Adhiras Prabhuji is world-renowned Kirtaniya and very senior devotee. He's going to play the International Kirtan. So please welcome His Grace Adi Rasa Prabhuji on the show. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my most humble obeisance. Thank you so much for your time. This is all yours.
Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama, Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare. One more time, please. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare. One more time, please. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One more time, more high. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One more time, please. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare
Rama
Krishna, Krishna, Hare One more time, please. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare. One more time. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Ram,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Ram,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Ram,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Ram,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Hare Ram
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Ram Ram
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare
Hare Ram Ram
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Jai Gaura Premanande.
Wow, what a Kirtan, please. It's called the blasting Kirtan, isn't it, Prabhuji and Mataji? Just go on the chat box and say His Grace Adidas Prabhuji ki Jai. This is the live streaming that we are watching all the way from Germany Kirtan Mela. If you still want to hear more Kirtans, stay tuned. Krishna Solanki Prabhuji. Jai.
Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Kirtan Yage Shri Nrsimhadev Bhagavan Shri Prahlad Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Kirtan Mela Mahotsava
Wow, it's blasting, it's blasting, it's blasting. Kirtan by His Grace Adiras Prabhuji. Adiras Prabhuji is from Russia and professional composer and singer in Western classical and several other genres. He travels across the globe performing Kirtan in Kirtan Melas, and he's popularly known for his electrifying Kirtan, just like we witnessed of this performance by Germany. This is a live streaming that we are watching from Germany Kirtan Mela. As we can see, His Holiness Sachinandan Swami Maharaj is also dancing in ecstasy, and that is the really very beautiful Kirtan Mela is happening in Germany. Yes, Krishna Solanki Prabhuji says Jai Jai in the comment box. So don't forget to go on the comment box and say Jai. His Holiness Sachinandan Swami Maharaj ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, His Grace Adiras Prabhuji ki Jai. Tomorrow is going to be the big day. Tomorrow is going to be Radha Ashtami. We start from the day 17 when Srila Prabhupada first went and take his food in New York City. Then we completed our show. Then we are going to complete our show tomorrow when Radha Ashtami take place. So tomorrow, His Holiness Loknath Swami Maharaj will join us for Radha Ashtami lecture. Then after that, special appearance by His Grace Gauranga Prabhuji, who is going to tell us the holy names across different faiths and expecting His Holiness Niranjan Swami Maharaj for live Kirtan from Mayapur. So don't forget to join us tomorrow. And tomorrow is going to be the special master of ceremony who is lead this World Holy Name Festival final day. His Grace Jagannath Kirtanananda Prabhuji, who is the leader of this Kirtan Festival week. So don't forget to join us tomorrow 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Tomorrow is going to be the last day. I don't want to say this last day because I love to be here. So please join us tomorrow sharp at 6 p.m. This is going to be the really very good day for you. And I pray to Srimati Radharani for your devotional life, that you become a very good devotee. And I can develop 1% of your qualities. So I also become the good devotee. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining me. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to open my showcase in front of such a beautiful devotional audience. And I'm really gonna see you tomorrow. And after like 365 days, we will join us again at 17 to 23rd September. But tomorrow is gonna be the big day. I wish you a really very happy Krishna consciousness night. Krishna Solanki says, thank you very much, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Krishna Solanki Prabhuji. You are very humble. Thank you so much. So that's it from the presentation area. Hare Krishna, sleep well. Tomorrow is going to be the big day. Radha Ashtami, fasting till noon. Don't forget that.